Alright, so this is what's going on back here. For those fortunate enough to not be too familiar with square bale anatomy, you can see we're kind of off to the side of the main chamber of the unit, and those little wire teeth pick up the hay and they shove it into that area down there, at which point these things come and go just like that into the opening where all the stuff is meshed and then hopefully tied. We have to work on the knotters too because I just really enjoy rage, and that's why I bought a square baler. Anyway, so what's going on is these bearings up in here are pretty much shot. You can see there's, take a look at that bearing. Keep in mind how there's no like plastic wheel on the outside and see how chewed up those rails are. These are hopefully the replacement bearings. These do have the plastic wheel and they roll back and forth on this railing. So what's going on is this is going like that as the machine's running. So yeah, and because of that, you can see, you know, and this is all, obviously we added some fresh scratches this morning, but all these problems are how I got it after an actual New Holland dealer had, in their words, made it field ready. So, you know, these teeth are kind of worn away, so I went and bought some more of those as well. These things I ordered online from Messick's along with the knives we put in earlier. They're like the only New Holland dealer that I know of that I actually trust. I'm sure there are other good ones out there, I just have yet to find them. So I bought those online, ship them straight to your house. What's not to love? So we gotta swap these out. But yeah, that needs some oil. And then I think that's about everything we have to fix on this part of the baler. That just leaves the part I've been dreading for like a year, which is the knotters, which also don't work great. Very important, any mechanic will tell you this, to match the color of the Loctite you use to the color of the machine that you're working upon. So in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, this is actually a really cool design they came up with on this, and it seems to work quite well and even run pretty smoothly since we got these new bearings in here, so there's not like, you know, 3/8 of an inch of up and down slop in each of those tracks. But you know, those things wear out. The plastic probably just got old and cracked and fell off or whatever. But anyway, moving on from there, I want to mess with the slip clutch on this thing. I honestly did not even realize this baler had a slip clutch on it. Laugh at me if you want. This is luckily my first and probably last square baler. And this thing, I think it's rusted solid, partially because of the age of the machine, and mostly because last year when I used this thing, the machine, there was no slippage in it, it just went straight to breaking stuff. So I figured we'll work on that this year. So what I did is I took my little battery powered impact here, I backed off these nuts all the way. I want this thing just like about as loose as possible. I know this isn't how they tell you to do this in the manual, but on my round baler, which is also a little bit older and has been sitting for a few years, I tried what the manual said and it wasn't nearly enough to actually break the bond of the rust and everything in this clutch just from sitting. So I backed these nuts off all the way. I had to use a hammer to break that center ring loose because it was pretty much fused to the rest of the clutch. And then it was pretty much just a matter of firing up the tractor and engaging the PTO and letting it run and burnish this clutch. Now I know that this did something because we can physically see the center of this clutch turning at a different speed than the flywheel, so there's that differential in there and thus some slippage. And also there's a fair amount of clutch material thrown to the outside to that ring on the flywheel there. So I think this did what we need it to do, and hopefully well, we won't go straight to breaking stuff. We'll have at least a little bit of mercy from this thing on the machine this year if I can't get out of using it. I'm really just fixing this up as a backup for the round baler, but let's see what happens here. Alright, so we got that entire feeder section put back together. So therefore, it's time to see if this thing will run any smoother. Well, it sounds considerably better. I think that ticking is those teeth hitting the back of that. Something's moving in an unpleasant way in there. Oh, that is new, unfortunately. Alright, so that pickup is powered by a belt, and I had taken the tension off the belt so I could move aforementioned belt so we could look through the access hole that it was covering up when I was working on that plunger, and I forgot to put it back on, so hopefully that's what it was just that grabbing, because which way is this thing supposed to go? This words. This is moving easier than it ever has. I mean, I can pretty easily, with one hand now, move this all at once. And keep in mind, this was pretty much impossible before. I mean, look at that. It's probably something like how it's supposed to be. So anytime there's an issue like that, so I'm told it's always best to get off the tractor and turn this by hand, see if you can identify where things are binding. I'm not identifying anything binding, so hopefully that thumping was just that belt grabbing and releasing like that. Looks like it's coming back just before 500 RPMs. It's not here now. A little bit. Oh yeah, there. What in the world could that be? Alright, so I did some research on this thing, and it seems like the issue, what is causing that thumping is towards the back side of the stroke on this thing. We had all that binding towards the front side of the stroke on this. It seems like we've fixed that, but all the way back here, when this arm goes from a downward position to an upward position, that moment when the plunger stops, there's a little bit of gap, I guess you could say, between the plunger and the side rails back there. So when this thing is switching from this direction to that direction, so to speak, it's hitting in the play there, in the looseness. At least that's the best of this to my diagnosis, but it seems like from the little bit of research I've done, this is caused by one of two things. One, the slides, the upper slides of the plunger are worn out, so there's a ton of play, which is possible, but again, this machine hasn't really been used all that much, so who knows if that's what's really going on. Or what I think it is, which is something is out of adjustment on that plunger, or out of adjustment relative to the wear on the rails on the top side of the machine. The only ones we haven't messed with so far. Well, I guess we've only messed with that one. I haven't touched the other side one. Now there is an adjustment in there. There's like a cam on the plunger itself, and well, I don't know if mine's just not working or what, but I already jacked with that for like probably 1 to 2 solid hours. I think it's broken because I can get it to turn, but the bearing itself doesn't actually move. So it's either broken, worn out, or already at the end of its adjustment and stuck there. But whatever the case, I can't actually do anything else about that. But the good news is the baler, after this, it literally runs 100 times smoother than it did before, and it seems like it's going to be perfectly usable now, as long as we keep it under 500 RPMs. Which is a big improvement, because last time we used this thing, it would self-destruct at any speed over 0 RPMs. So one more round of this and it should be perfect. In the meantime, we got to come back here and screw with these knotters. Yeah, this is going to be absolutely miserable. We basically have to pull all this stuff out and just install it the way they would have at the factory. Oh well, good thing I like rage.